Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Bill. We're going to continue the War Magic series with this video. We're going to be in the 3rd edition Player's Handbook. We're looking at the 3rd edition spells, seeing if there's any drastic differences, and kind of going over how we would use those spells in a more warfare situation where you could make them into items and give them to your soldiers than relying on just the spellcasters. So you're upping the magic usage in a way with items, like one-use items, that they could have. So for this video, we're going to look at enchantment and evocation spells. There's about 2 or 3 of each is first level spells for the wizard. So we're looking at Charm Person, Hypnotism, Sleep, Magic Missile, and Tensor's Floating Disc. So Charm Person makes one person your friend. That's a great way to get information with a captive. Hypnotism, it fascinates 2d4 hit dice of creatures. Sleep puts 2d4 hit dice of creatures into comatose slumber. Magic Missile does 1d4 plus 1 damage plus 1 missile per 2 level above first. And Tensor's Floating Disc, 3-foot diameter horizontal disc that holds 100 pounds per level. So, Charm Person, let's read it. See if it's any different than Pathfinder. Okay, it's 1 action to cast, the range is close, targets 1 person, duration's 1 hour per level. They get a will save, and spell resistance does apply. This charm makes a humanoid of medium size or smaller regard you as his trusted friend and ally. If the creature is currently being threatened or attacked by you or your allies, however, he receives a +5 bonus on a saving throw. The spell does not enable you to control the charmed person as if he were an automation, but he perceives your words and actions in the most favorable way. You can try to give the subject orders, but you must win an opposed charisma check to convince him to do anything he wouldn't ordinarily do. Retries are not allowed. A charmed person never obeys suicidal or obviously harmful orders, but he might believe you if you assure him that the only chance to save your life is for him to hold back an onrushing red dragon for just a few seconds. Any act by you or your apparent allies that threatens the charmed person breaks the spell. Note also that you must speak the person's language to communicate your commands, or else be good at pantomiming. So, like I said, that'd be a great way to interrogate prisoners that you take. Hypnotism. Let's look up hypnotism. Okay, 1 action to cast it, range is close. Several living creatures, no 2 of which may be more than 30 feet apart. Durations 2d4 rounds. Will save negates, spell resistance, yes. Excuse me. Okay. You gesture and droning incantation causes creatures nearby to stop and stare blankly at you. Hypnotized. You can use their rapt attention to make your suggestion and request seem more plausible. Roll 2d4 to see how many total hit dice you affect. Creatures with fewer hit dice are affected before creatures with more hit dice. Only creatures who can see or hear you are affected. but they do not need to understand you to be hypnotized. If you use this spell in combat, the targets gain a +2 bonus to their saving throws. If the spell affects only a single creature not in combat at the time, the saving throw has a -2 penalty. While hypnotized, a creature spot and listen checks suffer a -4 penalty, so perception would be a -4 in Pathfinder. Any potential threat, such as an armed party member moving behind the hypnotized creature, allows the creature a second saving throw. Any obvious threat, such as casting a spell, drawing a sword, or aiming an arrow, automatically breaks the hypnotism, as does shaking or slapping the creature. A hypnotized creature's ally may shake it free from the spell as a standard action. While the subject is hypnotized, you can make a suggestion or request, provided you can communicate with it. The suggestion must be brief and reasonable. An affected creature reacts as though it were 2 steps more friendly in attitude. Even once the spell ends, it retains its new attitude towards you, but only with respect to the particular suggestion. A creature who fails its saving throw does not remember that you enspelled it. That's cool. So I could see maybe using a medallion and handing that out to your soldiers and teaching the ones that's like maybe 1 row back how to do it, and have them just swing the medallion saying the whatever phrase would activate it, and that capturing a portion of that army that's in front of them, and they just sort of stand there. And if your soldiers are well enough trained, you ignore those guys and attack the others. And at least for 1 round, that section of the army can't fight back against you quite as well, especially if you do it in pockets all along your line. It's not going to be the best thing you can do, but it's definitely something you could do. The next spell is the best one you could use, but it would only work on an army that is not well trained or well experienced. So if you're targeting the front row and they're not the veterans, then you'd have the best results with the sleep spell. Okay, so you need a material component or divine focus to cast this spell. It affects several living creatures in a 15-foot radius burst, and the range is medium, so 100 feet plus 10 feet per level. Duration's 1 minute per level, so 10 rounds per level. Saving throw will negates. I would take the sleep, I'd put it on a sling stone and have your guys that are 2, 3, 4 man deep in the phalanx fighting the spear wall, launch those into the enemy, and that 15-foot radius sleep effect, it would affect 2d4 hit dice. So if it grabs all the weak guys, they would just fall, so all of a sudden your wall just opened up in an area. And if multiple spots are hit with that, all of a sudden you've lost the integrity of the beginning of your defenses. But as far as I can tell, sleep's no different than it is in Pathfinder. Sleep does not target unconscious creatures, constructs, or undead creatures. And extra hit points are irrelevant for determining how many hit dice a creature has. An ogre with 4d8 plus 8 hit points still has only 4 hit dice and could be affected by the spell. So there's sleep. Let's look at magic missile. If you could put that on one use item and just have them activate it and automatically targets what they're looking at, that's a free 1d4 plus 1 damage. That's like half the damage of a longsword stabbing. But the best way I like using magic missile is as a wand if I was an arcane spellcaster, because then you can keep using it when you're out of your regular spells, or you can preserve your regular spells and still deal some damage. But we also, my party house rules the distance of magic missile, which unless you read it carefully, you wouldn't think about it too much. But here's what I'm talking about. The range is 100 feet plus 10 feet per level. Targets up to 5 creatures, no 2 of which can be more than 15 feet apart. So when you get up to 5 missiles, you can target up to 5 creatures. But what we do, that's the house rule, is we say as long as you can see them, you can hit them. So we take that range modifier of 100 feet plus 10 feet per level, and we just kind of chuck that out the window. And say magic missile is going to be a very effective spell, because if you can see them 500 feet away, you can hit them. If you know they're a threat and you can pull up a spyglass and see them, you can hit them. And then the downside is the same thing can be done to them. But that's our house rule on magic missile. Magic missile functions like it does in Pathfinder for the most part. Same amount of missiles, same rules on targeting multiple things. Tensor's floating disc. Besides using this to transport stuff, let's figure out what its limits are and figure out if we could turn this into a weapon. So Tensor's floating disc. It's close range, 25 feet plus 5 feet per 2 level. It's a 3-foot diameter disc of force. It lasts 1 hour per level. You create a slightly concave circular plane of force that follows you about and carries loads for you. The disc is 3 feet in diameter and 1 inch deep at its center. It can hold 100 pounds of weight per caster level. If used to transport a liquid, its capacity is 2 gallons. So there's our first hint. The disc floats approximately 3 feet above the ground at all times and remains level. It floats along horizontally within spell range and will accompany you at a rate of no more than your normal speed each round. If not otherwise directed, it maintains a constant interval of 5 feet between itself and you. The disc winks out of existence when the spell duration expires. The disc also winks out of if you move beyond the range, by moving too fast or by such means as teleport spell, or try to take the disc more than 3 feet away from the surface beneath it. When the disc winks out, whatever it was supporting falls to the surface beneath it. Material component, a drop of mercury. So, you could use this to transport a bunch of weight and save on carts and wagons and stuff. So, assuming to craft an item you need to be 3rd level. So we'll say you make this at 3rd level. So now it lasts 3 hours. If you have a high enough spellcaster, they can make it at 8th level, caster level, and it would last 8 hours, which would be a day. So have that as like a wristband, have that as a maybe a brooch or something. They activate it, it's there, they can now put stuff on it. Now it can hold 2 gallons of liquid. So you can fill that with oil. You could then say, command it to go over the edge of a wall or over the edge of a cliff where you know enemies are. And it would just it would disappear because it no longer has 3 feet of ground under it, and the oil would just cover everything at the bottom of it. You could also use it to carry clay jugs and stuff like that. That could be filled with oil, as well as you could put explosives on it. If you had one flask and all that oil on the disc, when it goes and that flask was alchemist fire, as soon as it hits the bottom, the flask would ignite all the oil. If you have any interesting ways you think you could use Tensor's floating disk, or in Pathfinder I think it's just called floating disk, in a more combat-oriented way, put it in the comments below. Let's share this creativeness with everybody else. I could see you also putting a person on there. That would definitely work. And then if you were just moving stuff that was heavy, like if you had to create this at 8th level for the 8-hour duration, it would be able to carry 800 pounds. So, and it's 3 feet, so it's whatever you could stack in 3 feet. So that allows you to play with that in a lot more ways. I'm sure that once I stop filming, I'll have like 10 more ideas on how to use it. I always have fun trying to figure out ways to use spells that aren't normally used in that fashion. Let me know what you think about it in the comments below, as well as any of the other spells we just went over. Until we all game again, guys.